In Congressman Adam Schiff, California Democrat. Always good to see you, Congressman. Good morning.
Good to see you, Chris.
Is this what's going to happen? Are we going to have to start feeling some pretty serious impact before Congress moves?
I'm afraid that's probably true, and I think we will feel serious impacts. This is more than a minuscule cut. It's going to result in real pain, real furloughs, real job losses. But I think that the GOP is determined, at least in the House, that they need to do this for their members, as your guest pointed out, in the ideological fight within the Republican Party, cutting is king. It's supreme over investment in defense or anything else. So I think they need to do it to manage their own members, but I think they're going to be surprised by the reaction. They thought in 1994 shutting down the government was a good idea. It didn't prove to be. But the fact that the president is going to win this argument doesn't give me a lot of satisfaction, frankly, because it's the country ultimately that is losing here. It could really dampen our economic recovery, and I think the nation is really poised finally to recover from this lingering recession, but it won't be allowed to if we have these manufactured crises every 3 or 6 months.
But the other interesting thing that I found about this poll, Congressman, it was that the #1 priority of the American people, this is the USA Today poll, is cutting the budget deficit. So do Democrats need to look at moving closer to the Republican position, replace the sequester with some targeted cuts?
You know, Democrats certainly need to embrace the need for spending cuts, and frankly, we have. If you look at the $2 trillion in deficit reduction that we've already done, 2 to 1, it's been spending cuts over new revenues. This is also part of the reason why the president is winning the argument, and that is that the facts are plainly on his side. He has shown a willingness to compromise. Democrats have put forward cuts. They've offered to do more in the way of cuts, but it needs to be balanced. And that's where most of the American people are. What the American people are not willing to do is embrace protecting hedge fund billionaires and their tax breaks, or protecting the oil industry and their tax breaks, over providing health care to seniors. And essentially that's what the Republicans are offering. They're saying we're willing to cut benefits for poor and middle-class seniors, but we're not willing to do away with these limited tax breaks for the very wealthy among us. It's a losing argument. They can have all of the caucuses they want to figure out how do we put a better face on the GOP, but unless they put together a better set of priorities, they're going to continue losing this fight.
Well, as we said, the president did a series of interviews with local TV affiliates yesterday. Let me play for you a little bit of what he said.
I'd like to get as much stuff done as quickly as possible. Even though I'm just starting my second term, I know that, once we get through this year, then people start looking at the midterms, and after that, they start thinking about presidential elections.
So clearly he thinks, as a lot of analysts do, that the clock is ticking before we get into an even heavier political season next year. So how should he prioritize? I mean, does his immediate effort have to be on the sequester? Is it gun control? Is it immigration?
Well, he's going to have to multitask very well, because he's right. He has a limited time to act. But the most immediate priority, I think, for the American people is the economy. They're still struggling to keep a job or find a job. That is, I think, his top priority far and in a way. But he's going to have to be able to pursue other things at the same time, and the good news is that is happening, and I think it's happening successfully. We see the Congress coming together on immigration like it never has in my memory. We also see great progress, I think, on the gun issue, with mushrooming of support for universal background checks. So the good news is I think we will be able to tackle many of these issues at the same time, but the president does have to prioritize the economy, and in fact that's exactly what he's been doing.
And you know, he's had Joe Biden as his point man. In fact, he's going to be out in Connecticut today, which is of course the site of the Newtown shootings, pushing some gun legislation. But realistically, looking at the way Congress has been and the dearth of accomplishments that they've had in any significant way, do you really think that they can then deal with the sequester and get gun control legislation passed as well at the same time?
Well, it's a heavy challenge. I mean, just the sequester, frankly, is the biggest challenge in a way, because the GOP is not of one mind on it, and it's difficult to negotiate a resolution when the person sitting across the table keeps having a conversation within themselves. But I think we will have to do it, obviously, and I think in terms of the gun issue, there's a real sense of urgency, and that this is the time to act, and I think really a swelling of public opinion in favor of that. So I'm optimistic, but you're right. The track record for Congress is very poor. Under the current leadership, it has been among the most unproductive in history. So if you were a betting person, you'd bet against the Congress. But I think there are a lot of reasons, and probably the results of the last election most compelling to indicate that we are finally going to have immigration reform. We are going to take action on guns, and we're just going to have to deal with the sequester because, frankly, we're facing another government shutdown in a month. And I think, best case scenario, the sequester resolution gets wrapped in with keeping the government open, and we have some kind of a deal for a one-year period by the end of March.
Congressman Adam Schiff, it's good to see you, and thanks for getting up early out in California. Chris, you're shaking.